All right, welcome back to another Swick Tech podcast, the leading business podcast brought to you by Swick Tech. My name is Eric, and Shane, how are you doing?
Good, Eric. Looking forward to this one.
Yeah, me too. So, in fact, we have a guest on the line with us today, Patrick Timm, the Senior Customer Service Manager at Okta. Okta is I had it pulled up here. The interesting thing that I saw about them was they are the identity standard. The Okta Identity Cloud provides secure identity management with single sign-on multi-factor authentication, lifecycle management, and much more. And we're going to hear a lot about that today from Tim's perspective. Tim, how are you doing today? I'm sorry, Patrick.
No worries, Eric. I get it all the time. In fact, I just had an email addressed to Tim this morning, so no sweat.
It wasn't for me, I promise.
When you live with two first names, you come to expect it. So no worries. Yeah, thanks for having me this morning. As you mentioned, Okta, here at Okta, we are the identity standard. We're really a leader across all different types of identity use cases, workforce identity when companies are looking for an identity solution for their employees, customer identity when companies are looking for a solution for their customer portal, and even B2B. We see it all. And we've built our platform to really encompass all of those. Sometimes you hear those talked about in, research articles or market articles like from Gartner, Forrester as separate use cases. We really look at it all as identity. So we've built our platform as that single, that one-stop shop for everything. And I think more so than ever in this post-COVID world that we're all still navigating, where many companies are still dealing with remote workforces in whole or in part. It's more important than ever to have a solid identity strategy across all of those different use cases.
Well, Patrick, you mentioned identity management, identity strategy. In layman terms, what does that mean? What is identity management to your average business owner or CEO? If they're coming at this from a non-IT perspective, how do you explain that to them?
Yeah, great question, Shane. So it comes in many forms, but in its simplest is me as an employee of said company, how do I log in and access that company's resources? As an employee, I have access to email, maybe something like SharePoint, any number of on-premise applications or these days cloud-based applications. So how do I securely and in a frictionless way gain access to those resources with my company identity? We have to, before we give access to said resources, we want to verify I am, in this case, who I say I am when I'm coming in. So that's kind of a little overview of the business to employee use case. And on the same side, you need a solid strategy for your customers as well, right? Customers are seeking those frictionless experiences. In many cases, they may want to use an existing identity that they have, like a Facebook identity or a Google identity or even a Microsoft identity, to log into their shopping account. And so we help enable that too. It's really all about, again, providing a secure and frictionless access to the resources that the person should have access to.
That's what I'm hearing is typically, from Shane, to your point, the CEO or the business owner's perspective, the trade-off of inconvenience for security can tend to feel like a really big one with a lot of friction involved in that process. And you're bridging that gap seamlessly, removing the friction and creating a more secure environment for those identities while still making it secure.
Yeah, absolutely. You don't have to trade friction for security and vice versa. I'm here to tell you, you can have it both. And we've really built our product with that in mind across all of the different use cases that we can help companies with.
That's great. You can't have your cake and eat it too securely.
You can, yes.
I think the most common thing that I think of when we're talking about identity management is single sign-on. And that's kind of one of the big pieces, right, that you guys offer is, and you kind of mentioned it, hinted at it, offering a frictionless solution, offering maybe, an external person like a customer, someone can sign in using an existing identity that they have. So I guess just, can you explain a little bit more what single sign-on is? And other than making it a little bit easier and frictionless, what other benefits does it provide? Is it more secure? How do you guys use it to make it more secure? That sort of stuff.
Yeah, I'll touch on single sign-on first, and then I'll touch on that comment I made about Facebook and Google accounts being used. So think about single sign-on as you as an employee accessing your computer for that first time in the morning using a single username and password, and then having access to all of the applications that you need access to without having to log in again. That is a true single sign-on experience. There are many benefits to it. So, we talked about friction. One of the benefits of not having to re-enter your username and password constantly throughout the day is, it's a good experience for the employee. And the security benefit of it is I'm using a single account or a single identity, right? As a small business, as a medium business, as a large business, the more accounts that a person has to do their work throughout the day, the larger that attack platform is for the bad guys. You run into things, we call it fragmented identity. If I have an account over here and I have an account over here, chances are not everybody knows where all the identities are, and that's a bad thing. I for one, have experienced that in my past life. I may not remember all my passwords. That usually leads to people using weaker passwords because they don't want to have to remember, 5, 10, 20 different passwords. Hopefully 20 is an extreme use case, but in our personal lives, I would venture to guess we all have plenty of usernames and passwords out there. And the more you have, the less secure people tend to make their passwords. Behind the scenes, having a platform like Okta that can tie everything together in a good user experience, you get a lot of great data as well. So we can tell, where the employee was coming in from, what their typical login pattern looks like, and then you can layer more security controls on top of that if something doesn't look right. I live outside of Milwaukee and Pewaukee, and so I log into my computer almost every day from the same location. If all of a sudden I'm logging in from New York, maybe that same day, we can do some really cool things around that to, maybe step up our security and challenge me with another factor like a text message or an email with a one-time code in it. So when you're tying it all into a single platform, those things just become all that more powerful.
That's really cool.
Cool. That is super neat. So for purposes of our podcast, Patrick, what we do a lot is we deal with a lot of small businesses. That's, large majority of our clients, large majority of the folks that we're interacting with, and most of the people that listen to this. So I'm curious, do you guys deal with a lot of small businesses? What can Okta do for small businesses, and what makes you a great solution to build that identity standard or that identity management for them?
Yeah, the great thing about it is our platform's been built, again, with a lot of use cases in mind, but also with a lot of different company makeups in mind. And that means for us, say you're a small company, maybe you have a single IT admin, or you're using a partner like SwickTech. Our platform was built with ease of administration at top of mind. So you'll hear easy experience a lot. That's not just for the people interacting with Okta as an employer, as a customer, but also on the administrative side as well. We have over 6,500 and growing, probably more than 6,500 integrations. If I were to look it up right now, with the leading cloud-based application platforms, where setting up a new application for single sign-on is a matter of a handful of clicks and following directions, right? It's a no code or in some cases very low code approach, which is conducive to not only small and medium enterprises, but large ones as well, who are seeking to optimize their security administration team.
So if I, for example, let's say I'm coming to you, I'm a small business, my identities are extremely fragmented, right? I've got like a login for computers, and then my employees sign into their G Suite or their Office 365 environment. And then maybe I have some sort of, CRM or ERP tool. They're logging in there. Probably some customers have access into that ERP tool for billing and invoicing purposes, all that sort of stuff. I can keep all of the same solutions I have and presumably tie Okta into all of them, and then essentially create one sign-on through Okta for everything.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. So, many companies, large and small, are using Active Directory in some way, shape, or form, as an example. With our universal directory product, we can synchronize identities from that existing Active Directory environment into Okta, so that in many respects, we are able to reuse and then expand the reach of those identities in a single point. So yeah, absolutely. We're not going to come in and tell you have to get rid of that. There are many different ways in which we can integrate, but one of the most common is leveraging what's already there and then extending it to those cloud-based applications in a pretty cool and easy way.
So the question I have then, and this, I'm sure you get this, so it's not going to be too challenging for you. However, the devil's advocate here is, if you have the keys to that many castles, so to speak, how are you securing yourself and all the clients that you have inside of this platform? Is it not a giant target or bullseye on your back saying we have all of this access for everybody? How do you deal with that?
So that's a great question, Eric. Security as a security company is top of mind. It almost sounds silly saying that, but I think we've all seen examples of large technology companies who are in the news for vulnerabilities every other day. And we pride ourselves on doing everything with security top of mind. So we have this site, it's called trust.okta.com. And among other things like being very transparent about our service uptime, we're very transparent about all the security certifications that we have. So we have customers that need to be FedRAMP compliant. We have that. We have customers who need to be HIPAA compliant. We have HIPAA compliance certification. We recently completed an external PCI attestation. So it's all out there on trust.okta.com. And I would say if there's a major certification that's important in this space, we have it or we're pursuing it.
That's good.
And I imagine, oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, we also don't just have all these identities like in a single bucket behind the scenes. We take great care to ensure that everything is walled off from one another. I don't want to get too deep into the weeds on that one, but needless to say, everything
Very
we
strong
do,
DevOps team, right?
Yeah, everything we do is with security at top of mind.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing, Patrick. I was going to say, I imagine that the part that Eric was hinting at was like, does someone have a username and password to log in and see all of these clients and all of the access to everything that you guys have? And of course, I would assume the answer to that is no. There's not just one single point of failure for all of that.
Correct. Yep.
Cool. So that's super interesting on the security front, and I'm on trust.okta.com right now, and it looks, like you guys provide a ton of detail and a ton of information on the security and the compliance side, which is really cool to see. Very neat. So I guess back to the idea that I had before about the small businesses, let's say I'm in a CEO or a CFO suite at a company, and I'm just realizing, okay, we've got a small business, lots of fractured identity. I'm new to identity management. I didn't even know this was really a thing, right? I didn't care that my employees were logging into 7 different places, and now I realize it's important. What are the top 3 things that I should start doing? And like, how can I start using Okta and improve my organization's identity management today?
Yeah, well, one, you really need to think about the business problems you're trying to solve. And so I would venture to say that in this world, most leaders need to solve the problem of remote workforce in some way, shape, or form. Maybe not your entire workforce, but maybe you're having people work in the office a couple of days and working remotely. And before COVID, that may never have happened. My brother-in-law works for a smaller business in the Milwaukee area, and remote work was a brand new thing for them when COVID hit. And I don't think that's going away, even when this settles down. People are now accustomed to working from home. Many people may prefer it. People who had never worked from home previously or only ever worked from home because they had to. So work from home is here to stay. But at a high level, as a leader of a company, think about the business challenges that you need to solve. Another thing I would say as the leader of a company, once you think about the business challenges you need to solve, think about where you're trying to accelerate your business. Many businesses we work with are going through some sort of digital transformation. Now, that's going to look different in a small to medium-sized business as it would in a large enterprise. But even in small and medium-sized businesses, the interaction point for customers is shifting more and more to digital. I don't care what industry you're in. I don't care what it looked like before COVID. This year has flipped things on its head. So if you weren't providing a digital platform for your customers, you should probably start thinking about that. And so that's really not a business problem. That's in my mind anyway, a business opportunity that I would look at, and identity can help accelerate that. Again, we talked about it earlier. If you are able to provide a consistent, secure, and frictionless experience for your customers, chances are they're going to adopt your digital product at a faster rate, and higher adoption and customer stickiness are things that I think are important to all businesses. And then third, if you haven't already, as you're going through this process, you have to think about security, and whether you're just dipping your toe into digital transformation or you started well before COVID. You have to do it securely, because I don't care what size your company is. There are people out there that want to disrupt it, that want to look at your customer accounts as an opportunity for some sort of information gathering exercise. So you have to solve your business challenges. You have to create your business opportunities in a secure way. So those are the top 3 things that I would point to. If you're the leader of a company, you should start thinking about right now. Chances are you're already thinking about at least a couple of those.
Oh yeah, I would hope so. Cool. Very good.
I just like the cleanliness of this and the simplicity of it. There's a lot to think about already. If you're putting a net around everything out there, we call it, identities, and you talk about a fragmented identity, but casting that net around and putting it under one kind of umbrella and then securing it. And I can aim to you for any issues I have and work through the frictionless experience that you have as a business owner. That just sounds very attractive. What's the gateway into Okta? Like, where do people start typically? Is there a product or a suite of products or a subscription? Like, where's the point of entry? Because I imagine there's a lot people can do with you. Where do they start?
Yeah, a lot of our smaller and medium-sized customers do start with that single sign-on product. So I mentioned we have a product called Universal Directory. That's really the directory in the cloud that can serve as that base for all the other cool things that we can do. And we typically see that combined with single sign-on as a launch pad. I would say now, though, this year, certainly we've seen an increase in interest around multi-factor authentication or two-factor login. As even a lot of our current clients who may not have fully embraced the concept of requiring, say a username and password and a text code or a one-time passcode in combination, had to think about it because of the remote workforce challenge. So that's another product that I would say is a close second, if not neck and neck with single sign-on today.
That makes sense. And if someone has an existing authenticator application like Duo or Microsoft Authenticator, et cetera, are you bringing one of those offerings to the table, or are you working with existing authentication applications? Or
yes, we can support third-party authenticators, Google Authenticator, Duo, YubiKey. If you've heard of those, are cool little hardware keys. Yep, there you go. Shane's got his YubiKey. Nice. Love it. Love it. We also have our own called Okta Verify, which is an app for iOS and Android where you can do the traditional rotating one-time code or a push notification. Again, we're trying to build that frictionless experience. So I use my push notification just about every day as my second factor for logging in. And that comes with the single sign-on and MFA product.
And so, just so I understand this correctly, Patrick, when you guys deploy MFA for through Okta for a client, you're the ones that are creating the challenge now, right?
We can be, yes.
Okay, so you don't have to set up MFA on all your different accounts. Once you have your logins tied through Okta for everything, you could challenge it, on every single login through Okta. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you're using our Okta Verify app as that second factor for the challenge, once you have an identity in Okta, say your company, signed up for single sign-on and multi-factor authentication, you have to go through a registration process that very first time, but it's as simple as 2 steps. You download the app,
Sure.
Either the iOS or Android version, and then you scan a code on your desktop window that's prompted as you're going through that enrollment. And then, you can use our factor as that second mode of challenge. We can also do things like SMS. So many people have probably seen that with their financial institutions, and more and more maybe with their retail accounts. We can do a call factor. I mean, there's a multitude of options that we have, and to Eric's question, we can even support existing third-party factors as well if you already have a solution like Duo that you've purchased.
Sure. Very cool. Awesome. Well, I think that's all the questions and topics we had for you. Anything else you want to share about Okta? Any cool, exciting initiatives or stuff you want to promote, or just tell us a little bit more?
Yeah. Thanks, Shane. I would just, leave the podcast with reinforcing 2 things that we already talked about. And that is, creating a frictionless, or in some cases, a friction appropriate experience for our customers. More and more, I'm kind of using that term friction appropriate, especially as, most of us are working remotely, and companies may want to challenge people with that second mode of authentication, but doing it securely as well. We talked about the great lengths that we as Okta take to secure our platform. Companies big and small are going through those same assessments right now to ensure that that what they do is protected in an appropriate way. So, yeah, I would say that those are the two most important things. And in terms of what's next for us, we're constantly innovating. So our platform was built on the cloud and in the cloud, which allows us to be really agile. And if we were to talk again next year at this time, I guarantee we'd have new things to talk about. So.
Very cool. Yeah, it sounds super exciting, and it's really cool to see how far Okta has come in such a small amount of time. I think you guys were founded like just over 10 years ago, right? So.
And
yeah.
For those, I was gonna say,
go
for
ahead.
those listening that aren't visually consuming this, it's Okta, okta.com, right?
Yep, that's right.
Awesome.
Sorry, another thought. So I don't know if you wanted to expand on that last thought real quick.
No, I had something, but this morning was a little interesting with some childcare. So whatever thought I had wasn't important, and probably went away.
Challenges
No
of work.
problem. Cool. Well, thanks for joining us today, Patrick. This was a super interesting topic. We haven't really dived a ton into identity management, so it's really exciting not to hear just about what identity management is, but also to see how you guys are doing it. And I appreciate you reconnecting with me after 9 or 10 years. It's been, I think, since we worked together and lived together back in the college days. So appreciate your time.
Yeah, it was great, guys. I appreciate you having me on, and I'd be more than happy to come back at some other point if this is a continued topic that you guys want to hit on for all your listeners.